I think Senator Heinrich and his staff are working with us on the schedule for today's activities, and I want to thank all senators for being here and for your cooperation today and also last week. Recognizing the demands on the schedule of every senator and the fact that we've got multiple committee proceedings going on over the next hour or so, the committee meets today for a short business meeting to vote on 4 nominations, followed by a hearing on 3 more nominations, 1 within the Department of the Interior and 2 at Energy. All 4 nominees will be considered, who will be considered at today's business meeting, submitted timely answers to questions submitted by senators for the record of our hearing. Consequently, each one listed on the agenda that the committee's clerk has sent to your offices on Monday, May 5th. You'll have those names. First, we'll vote on the nomination of Dr. Andrea Travnik. Second, we'll vote on the nomination of Ms. Leslie Beyer. Third, we'll vote on the nomination of Theodore Garish. And fourth, we'll vote on the nomination of Tristan Abbey. Each of these nominees is well qualified and has my wholehearted support. As soon as we have a reporting quorum present, I'm going to ask the committee to vote on those nominees. After the votes, I'll recognize any member who may wish to speak briefly on any of the nominees. I was grateful to the senators last week when we did this for keeping their remarks brief, and I renew my request for that today so that we can proceed promptly to our hearing once it's there. As I take a We'll turn to Senator Heinrich for a moment.
Thank you, Chairman. I intend to support 3 of the 4 nominations before us this morning, but I have to say I do so with substantial reservations. I remain concerned about the reckless policies that this administration is pursuing in the Department of Energy, the workforce reductions, the funding freezes, the hit list of programs targeted for termination. And I am equally concerned with its disdain for responsible stewardship of our public lands at the Interior Department. This administration does not seem to understand the need for the public in public lands. I still believe it's better for the Senate to confirm qualified nominees who we can hold accountable and who will hopefully use their knowledge and expertise to push back on the President's misguided initiatives, rather than leave these important offices in the hands of unaccountable DOGE employees. Consequently, I will vote in favor of 3 of the 4 nominations. I am, however, unable to support Mr. Abbey's nomination. I am deeply troubled by what is happening at the Energy Information Administration. Last month, it released its annual energy outlook without its analytical narrative, which is traditionally the centerpiece of that report. And it has also canceled its International Energy Outlook for 2025. Now, whether these actions are a result of the loss of so many staff experts or out of fear of offending the Trump administration or a combination of the two, we are left without EIA's independent, nonpartisan, and impartial analysis. I don't blame Mr. Abbey for this. He hasn't been there yet, but neither do I believe he is the correct person to stand up to this administration and defend EIA's independence and integrity. So I will be voting no on this confirmation.
We're still too short of a quorum, and so what we will do now is, while we're waiting for a couple of others to show up who I'm told are on their way soon, why don't we move to our opening statements, and then we can interrupt those if a quorum forms between now and then. Today, we'll receive testimony from 3 of our fellow citizens nominated by President Trump for senior offices within our committee's jurisdiction, 1 with the Department of the Interior and 2 with the Department of Energy. I thank President Trump for putting their names forward. After these opening statements, and assuming we're not interrupted by a vote, then I will recognize Senator Justice to introduce Ms. Herreza, and then Senator Hoeven will introduce Mr. Haustveit. Today, we're considering 3 nominees for these positions at Energy and Interior. Officers of the United States responsible for legal affairs, conducting research to modernize and protect the power grid, and researching and developing projects to increase domestic production of oil, gas, coal, and elements necessary for energy. First, we'll hear from Mr. William Duffmeyer, to be Solicitor at the Department of the Interior. Second, we'll hear from Ms. Catherine Herreza, to be Assistant Secretary of Energy for Electricity. And third, we'll hear from Mr. Kyle Haustveit, to be the Assistant Secretary of Energy for Fossil Energy. Mr. Duffmeyer is the nominee to be the Solicitor for the Department of the Interior. Solicitor is the Chief Legal Officer of the Department, providing legal counsel and advice to the Secretary and other offices within the Department, as well as all of its bureaus and offices, ensuring the Department's components carry out their responsibilities in accordance with the law. Attorneys from the Solicitor's Office represent the Department in administrative proceedings and work collaboratively with attorneys in the Department of Justice to represent the Department of the Interior at judicial proceedings. The Solicitor's term also assists in drafting and reviewing legislation, regulations, and contracts, as well as upholding the Department's ethical obligations. Mr. Duffmeyer currently serves as Senior Advisor to the National Energy Dominance Council at the White House. Prior to that, he served as General Counsel in corporate America and was a partner at the law firm of Williams and Connolly. He's a graduate of the University of Virginia, both as an undergraduate, where he got his bachelor's degree, and also where he went to law school. And at Virginia's Law School, he served as an editor on the Virginia Law Review. Second, Ms. Catherine Herreza, nominated as Assistant Secretary of Energy for Electricity, will lead the Department of Energy's research and development to modernize and harden America's electric grid infrastructure. That task requires modernizing grid hardware components, engineering end-to-end systems for communications, modeling, measurements and controls, and operations and planning, and conducting research and development into power storage reliability and safety. Ms. Herreza currently serves as Senior Advisor in the Office of the Undersecretary, and in the first Trump administration served as Deputy Assistant Secretary for Transmission, Permitting, and Technical Assistance. She holds a BS in Chemical Engineering from Virginia Tech and an MBA from Loyola University, Maryland. And finally today, Mr. Kyle Haustveit, nominated as Assistant Secretary of Energy for Fossil Energy, will lead the Office of Fossil Energy. This division of the department focuses on investing in research, development, and implementation of fossil fuel-derived projects, as well as strengthening American energy and critical mineral security. The office's core functions include increasing domestic production and processing of critical minerals and materials, reducing methane emissions, reviewing applications for LNG imports and exports, and issuing licenses accordingly. The office also manages the National Energy Technology Laboratory, or NETL, which is the lead field center for research and program development. It's also expected that the President will restore to this office its longstanding duty of managing America's strategic petroleum reserve. Mr. Haustveit is currently the geoscience manager at Devon Energy, where he directs multidisciplinary teams responsible for completions design, diagnostic programs, and field development planning in unconventional reservoirs. Also manages that company's affiliate that invests in digital, low-carbon, and next-generation drilling technologies. Mr. Haustveit holds a BS in petroleum engineering from Montana Technological University and an MBA from the University of Oklahoma. All nominees here today are well qualified for the offices for which the President's nominated them, and they represent exactly the type of bold leadership that America needs and deserves now. Now, the United States truly is in a battle for our future, and we won't win it. We won't win the artificial intelligence race. We won't win at advanced manufacturing. We won't win the battle for Western civilization unless we win the energy war. Under the Biden administration, residential electricity rates skyrocketed, a staggering 23%, and our energy independence was significantly compromised. This was the foreseeable future of an administration defined by burdensome regulations, reckless climate mandates, and a deliberate war on reliable American resources like oil, gas, coal, and critical materials and minerals. These policies weakened our grid. They inflated our prices and left America vulnerable to adversaries, adversaries who don't share our interests or our values. Republicans' agenda for energy dominance is an overdue departure from this approach. It places American interests first, prioritizing the responsible development of our abundant natural resources. The Trump administration recognizes that a strong America requires a reliable, affordable energy supply that does not depend on foreign nations, especially adversaries like China, Russia, or regimes in the Middle East. Once confirmed, each of today's nominees will have critical responsibilities to help achieve this. All right, we've got a quorum. I'm going to pause there. Much as I'm sure you were all just riveted by that lovely statement. Okay, we'll now turn to the nomination of Dr. Andrea Travnik to be the Assistant Secretary of the Interior for Water and Science. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Lee.
Aye.
Mr. Barrasso.
Aye by proxy.
Mr. Risch. Mr. Daines.
Aye.
Mr. Cotton.
Aye.
Mr. McCormick.
Aye.
Mr. Justice.
Aye.
Mr. Cassidy.
Aye.
Ms. Hyde-Smith.
Aye.
Ms. Murkowski. Mr. Hoven. Mr. Heinrich.
Aye.
Mr. Wyden.
No by proxy.
Ms. Cantwell.
No.
Ms. Rono.
No by proxy.
Mr. King.
Yes by proxy.
Ms. Cortez Masto.
No by proxy.
Mr. Hickenlooper. Mr. Padilla. Mr. Gallego.
Yes by proxy.
On this vote, the ayes are 14 and the nays are 6. And the nomination is to be reported favorably.
Nominations agreed to and is to be reported favorably to the Senate. We'll now turn to the nomination of Ms. Leslie Beyer to be the Assistant Secretary of the Interior for Lands and Mineral Development. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Lee.
Aye.
Mr. Barrasso.
Aye by proxy.
Mr. Risch. Mr. Daines.
Aye.
Mr. Cotton.
Aye.
Mr. McCormick. Mr. Justice. Mr. Cassidy. Ms. Hyde-Smith. Ms. Murkowski. Mr. Hoven. Mr. Heinrich.
Aye.
Mr. Wyden.
No by proxy.
Ms. Cantwell. Ms. Rono.
No by proxy.
Mr. King.
Yes by proxy.
Ms. Cortez Masto.
No by proxy.
Mr. Hickenlooper. Mr. Padilla. Mr. Gallego.
Yes by proxy.
On this vote, the ayes are 14 and the nays are 6, and the nomination is reported favorably, ordered to be reported favorably.
Nominations agreed to and will be reported favorably to the Senate. We'll next turn to the nomination of Mr. Theodore Garris to be Assistant Secretary of Energy for Nuclear Energy. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Lee.
Aye.
Mr. Barrasso.
Aye by proxy.
Mr. Risch. Mr. Daines.
Aye.
Mr. Cotton.
Aye.
Mr. McCormick. Mr. Justice. Mr. Cassidy. Ms. Hyde-Smith. Ms. Murkowski. Mr. Hoven. Mr. Heinrich.
Aye.
Mr. Wyden. Ms. Cantwell. Ms. Hirono. Mr. King. Ms. Cortez Masto. Mr. Hickenlooper. Mr. Padilla. Mr. Gallego. And Mr. Barrasso.
Aye, as well as if I could be recorded as an aye in person for the previous votes.
Right. Yep. On this vote, the ayes are 14 and the nays are 6, and the nomination is ordered to be reported favorably.
Nominations agreed to in order to be reported favorably to the Senate. Finally, we'll turn to the nomination of Mr. Tristan Abbey to be the Administrator of the Energy Information Administration at the Department of Energy. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Lee.
Aye.
Mr. Barrasso. Mr. Risch.
Aye.
Mr. Daines.
Aye.
Mr. Cotton.
Aye.
Mr. McCormick. Mr. Justice. Mr. Cassidy. Ms. Hyde-Smith. Ms. Murkowski. Mr. Hoven. Mr. Heinrich. Mr. Wyden. Ms. Cantwell. Ms. Hirono. Mr. King. Ms. Cortez Masto. Mr. Hickenlooper. Mr. Padilla. Mr. Gallego. Ms. Cortez Masto. Right. I'm sorry, your vote? Yeah, yes, thank you. Yeah, 12-8, that's what I have, 12-8. On this vote, the ayes are 12 and the nays are 8, and the nomination is ordered to be reported favorably.
Business meeting. We'll now proceed directly back into the hearing. I will, in the interest of time, just, unless there's objection, submit the rest of my opening statement in written form for the record, and I'll turn to Senator Heinrich now for his opening.
Thank you, Chairman. Welcome to Mr. Doffermeyer, Ms. Hariza, and Mr. Haustveit. Each of these nominees has been nominated for an important office with broad responsibilities under this committee's jurisdiction. The Office of Solicitor of the Department of Interior is one of the most important legal offices in our government. As broad as these authorities are, they are, however, not unlimited. The solicitor does not make law, only interpret and enforce the laws enacted by Congress. For these reasons, I am deeply troubled by a senior advisor to Secretary Burgum using the solicitor's authority to suspend all of the legal opinions of the prior solicitor. We all recognize that departmental policies will change from one administration to the next. Our laws, however, do not. I am even more troubled that this same advisor reinstated an earlier solicitor's opinion that had been vacated by a federal district court. The department needs to follow the law as interpreted by the district court, not try to change it on its own. And I will be very interested to hear your thoughts on these matters, Mr. Dorfman-Meyer. The Assistant Secretary of Energy for Electricity is another office with crucial responsibilities. More than 340 million Americans depend on the electric grid for the power we need for our daily lives. Americans today are facing an energy affordability crisis as electricity prices are on track to be the highest they have been since the 1990s. Programs like the Weatherization Assistance Program and the Home Electric Appliances Rebate Programs are saving American families money. The proposed cuts to these programs in the President's skinny budget take money away from families just as inflation and tariffs are raising the prices of everyday goods. As we all know, the EIA expects that electricity demand will grow, and as this happens, electricity costs will continue to rise. We simply won't be able to meet our energy needs without substantially more transmission and generation. Expanding transmission planning across regions could lead to billions of dollars in energy cost savings. And in fact, scientists at the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory estimate that by 2050, transmission expansion could lead to $270 billion to as much as $490 billion in savings. We will be looking to you, Ms. Harisa, if confirmed, to help ensure that the grid is reliable and resilient and to see that it has adequate capacity to add the new generation resources that we need to meet our growing demand. Finally, the Assistant Secretary for Energy for Fossil Energy is responsible for natural gas export permitting, but also has important responsibilities for fossil energy research and development, critical minerals production, carbon capture and sequestration, hydrogen production, and methane emissions reduction. The job is bigger than just issuing export permits, and I will be interested in hearing your thoughts on these other matters within the office's portfolio. Mr. Housefite. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Heinrich. The rules of the committee require that all nominees be sworn in connection with their testimony. So if you'll each please stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give before the committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God. Thank you. And then before we have you begin with your opening statements, I'll ask the witnesses 3 standard questions that are posed to nominees appearing before this committee. First, will you be available to appear before the committee and other congressional committees to represent departmental positions and respond to issues of concern to Congress? Second, are you aware of any personal holdings, investments, or interests that could constitute a conflict of interest or create the appearance of such conflict should you be confirmed and assume the office to which you've been nominated by the President? And third, are you involved in or do you have assets in a blind trust? Okay, now we're going to go to Senator Justice first, who will introduce Ms. Harisa, and then we'll go to Senator Hoeven to introduce Mr. Housefite.
Mr. Chairman, ranking member, I really appreciate the opportunity to introduce and speak very, very highly of this young lady right here. That's all there is to it. You know, Katie Harisa and I attended the same high school in Beckley, West Virginia. That's hard. I'm sorry? Well, actually, I was there a few years earlier. And in fact, I was amazed that it was a high school when I was there. No, I can just tell you just this, that we're both flying eagles from Woodrow Wilson High School and in a little town of Beckley, West Virginia. And when I grew up, and I'm sure when Katie grew up, in all fairness, you know, I rode my bicycle all the way across town, some 4 or 5 miles to the Little League to go to practice there. You know, it was the perfect hometown America. And absolutely, I know we're really proud of that. And, but this goes way deeper for me because absolutely, I know Katie. I know absolutely all of the great things that she's done. Just listen, just a couple of these. Now, just think about this. She served in the prior Trump administration and as the Deputy Secretary of, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Transmission Permitting and Technical Assistance. Then, she served as Vice President of Corporate Affairs at Electric Power Research Institute. She was the Director of Infrastructure Resilience at Edison Electric Institute. Absolutely, she is so qualified, it is off the chart. And I absolutely would tell us all that all these nominees, I'm very confident you're going to be confirmed. That's all there is to it. But listen to me just this. You have a task that's in front of you that is astronomically important. I've said it over and over, and people are getting sick of listening to me say this and everything, but energy is everything, guys. It's everything. Right now, it is teetotally everything. It resolves everything, whether it be inflation, national security, on and on and on. We all know that every country of the world, every single country of the world, the more energy they have, the longer the people live, and the healthier the people are. We have got to stop this war on energy in every way. We got to stop it. It was brought up by our chairman, how do we win? How do we win the war? Well, you stop the war. I mean, that's what we got to do. We've got to stop the war and realize just one thing. We're going to awaken to a crisis like you can't imagine in this country, and we better get ourselves ready and get ourselves ready right now. We're going to lose on a bunch of fronts if we're not ready. This lady is extremely, extremely qualified, and I absolutely am right in her camp wholeheartedly. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll defer the rest of the time, and thank you, Katie. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Justice. It's fantastic. I'm sure you both have statues and plaques commemorating your public service at your shared high school. We've also got a statement from Senator McCormick that, without objection, will be admitted into the record in support of Ms. Reza. Senator Hoeven, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it very much. And Senator Justice, I was just wondering, like I said, if you attended that school about the same time, maybe you weren't a year or two ahead of her.
Probably.
Maybe you were a senior when she was like a sophomore. But anyway, that's pretty cool. Great to have all of you here, Mr. Chairman. Ranking Member Heinrich, thanks for holding this very important hearing, and it is a pleasure to introduce this morning Kyle Hausveit to the committee. Kyle's a fellow North Dakotan, which is, you could kind of tell because he's got that sharp, capable look about him, and nominee for the Assistant Secretary for Fossil Energy at the Department of Energy. Also would like to welcome your wife, right? Bria, where are you? Okay, good. You got his back. Good girl. And 4 children. Now, I want to make sure I get these right. So, Kyle, you correct me if I'm wrong. Is it Neva? Is your Nevea? Nevea, where are you? Is that, there you are. All right. Good to have you here. Also, Harper. I'm pretty sure I got that one right. Hi, Harper. How are you? Noah. Oh yeah, I understand that feeling. And Hudson. Where's Hudson? Okay, all right. Boy, they look awesome. And so cool to have them here. Born in Fargo and then raised in Tioga, which is out in the heart of oil country. He's got roots in both energy and agriculture, our 2 biggest industries. He's a 3rd-generation energy worker, petroleum engineer by training, and a real leader in terms of innovation. He co-invented a patented hydraulic fracturing technique, music to every North Dakotan's ears, right? Hydraulic fracturing, we love that. And that's used across other shale basins as well. He understands that energy is foundational, as Senator Justice says so eloquently, to really everything, our economic security, our national security, and many other things as well, our standard of living, just every way you can think of, just like Senator Justice says. He brings a tremendous amount of experience, skill to our nation's, our mission, which is energy dominance, right? Not just energy secure. We want to be energy dominant, and we're going to do it. And ensure that Americans have access to low-cost, dependable energy. Kyle, thanks for being here. Thanks for your willingness to serve. We appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Hoeven. I'm impressed that you can tell by looking at someone that they're from your state, because he's got that sharp North Dakota.
Look at him.
Look, right.
When I look in the mirror every morning, that's what I see.
It's the cold, brisk. It's fantastic. It's the cold, brisk air. What's the coldest it got up there this summer, or this winter? Oh, 30 below. Yeah, that is rather significant. Yeah, 2 degrees Kelvin. All right. Now, as I turn to each witness, what we're going to do is we'll have opening statements first from Mr. Duffmeyer, then Mr. Reza, and then Mr. Hausfeld. Feel free to introduce any family you've got with you, and you may begin.
Heinrich, and distinguished members of this committee. Am I on? There you go. All right. Chairman Lee, Ranking Member Heinrich, and distinguished members of this committee, it is an honor and a privilege to appear here today as President Trump's nominee to serve as the Solicitor of the United States Department of the Interior. Before I begin, I would like to recognize and introduce the most important people in my life, my family. Here with me today is my oldest son, William, my daughter, Perry, my daughter, Wynn, and my youngest son, Hodges, who's celebrating his birthday tomorrow. They are my best friends and my biggest supporters. I would also like to recognize my beautiful and wonderful wife, Bessie Lidke Doffmeyer, the love of my life and the greatest wife and mother imaginable. My sweet and always supportive sister, Julia Green, is here, along with the woman who brought me into this world and raised me to be the person I've become, my mom, Mary Doffmeyer. I love you, Mom. Finally, I would like to recognize my late father, Everett Bubba Doffmeyer, who I love so very much and who I trust is with us in spirit here today. Thanks again to the members of this committee for your warm welcome to my family, and thanks to all of you for your service and dedication to this country. My inspiration to serve my country dates back many years ago, when completely out of the blue, I was asked to serve in one of the single most important positions in the White House. Thanks to my sweet wife, Bessie, who was my girlfriend at the time, who was working in the visitor's office in the Bush administration, I was appointed to serve as the Easter Bunny at the 2006 White House Easter egg roll. And as you can imagine, it was really hard to see out of that 6-foot-tall bunny suit, and it was hot and uncomfortable underneath all that fur, but I can assure you that was a small price to pay for literally being the most important figure at the White House, even if it was just for an afternoon. And I didn't even have to go through Senate confirmation. But in all seriousness, I am truly honored and humbled by the opportunity to serve as the Solicitor of the Department of the Interior, if I'm confirmed. Serving at the Department of Interior would be a dream job at me for many ways. My first job out of college was a whitewater rafting guide in Teton National Park. I lived in a 2-room log cabin on the edge of the park, heated by nothing more than a wood-burning stove with a majestic view of the Grand Teton out my loft window, a view that I shared with a moose living in my backyard. When I wasn't guiding on the river, I spent my free time backpacking, fishing, and skiing on some of America's most treasured public lands. If fortunate enough to be confirmed, please know that this former Snake River rafting guide will consider it an honor and a privilege of a lifetime to serve as a faithful steward for America's best idea, our national park system. It would also be an honor and a privilege of a lifetime to work with the United States Fish and Wildlife Service at the Department of Interior. I love to hunt, I'm an avid fly fisherman, I love to hike, I love nature, I love to explore, and I especially love sharing these lifelong passions with my 4 children. I could not agree more with the great Teddy Roosevelt when he observed that very few responsibilities of the federal government compare in importance with the great central task of leaving this land even a better land for our descendants than it is for us. Yet, above all else, The Department of Interior's responsibility for managing our nation's vast energy resources is what landed me in this seat here today. For the past 5 years, I've had the privilege of working in Texas at one of America's great energy companies, Energy Transfer. After spending over a decade as a D.C. attorney at Williams & Connolly, and then as general counsel of an overseas development agency in the first Trump administration, I decided to move to Texas to work in the energy business, to work alongside the patriotic Americans who actually design, build, and operate the critical infrastructure that fuels our economy and enables our way of life. I learned a tremendous amount working in the energy business over the past 5 years. One lesson I learned all too well is that the energy emergency our nation currently faces is not due to a shortage of natural resources. From my perspective, working in the private sector, the primary contributor to this energy emergency is our country's Byzantine state and federal regulatory framework that makes it far too easy to kill infrastructure projects with endless litigation, and far too hard to actually get shovels in the ground. If confirmed, I look forward to working with this committee to fix our broken permitting system, to help ensure that our country has a transparent, predictable, and efficient regulatory regime that not only permits, but actually promotes the responsible build-out of our nation's critical energy infrastructure. I would like to conclude by giving all thanks and praise to God the Father and His Son, my Savior, Jesus Christ, who taught us all that to whom much is given, much is required. I feel so incredibly blessed to have been born a citizen of the greatest country in the history of the world. This country has given me and my family so much that we feel like it is incumbent upon us to give back to our country in any way that we can. If confirmed, I look forward to working with this committee to do just that. Chairman Lee, Ranking Member Heinrich, and members of the committee, thank you again for the opportunity to appear before you here today. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Duffmeyer. Before we turn to Ms. Areza, I just want to note, well, first of all, the thought of the Easter Bunny. I'm just imagine this is how you won Bessie over.
Absolutely.
It's a high-stakes gambit. On the one hand, it could have ended in disaster, but if you pull it off, you would have won her affection, which apparently happened. Number two, had I known about this, I would have insisted that you wear the Easter Bunny to your hearing. It would have been fun. Ms. Areza.
Thank you, Chairman Lee, Ranking Member Heinrich, and distinguished members of this committee. It is a true honor to be here, and I want to thank President Trump and Energy Secretary Wright for the trust they have placed in me with this nomination to serve as the Assistant Secretary of Electricity at the U.S. Department of Energy. If I have the honor of being confirmed, I look forward to working with all the members of this committee. I would like to take a moment to recognize those who are very dear to me, especially those who have traveled to be here and continue to support me during one of the most important opportunities of my life. My husband Ken and stepdaughter Chloe from Maryland, my sister Betty and her daughter Ella from Virginia, my sister Tina and her son Brandon from West Virginia, and many extended friends and colleagues. My parents wish they could be here in person, but since my mom is recovering from surgery, they are watching from their home in Beckley, West Virginia. I also want to thank my very large and extended family who are watching from all over the country. More importantly, I want to thank my parents and the leaders who have come before me. My dad instilled the importance of academics, religion, music, and sports, also known as ARMS, which has armed me for how to live my life. My mother is a lot like President Trump, a fighter. When times get tough, their never-give-up attitude inspires me to keep going. I will never forget growing up under their guidance in a place called Almost Heaven, West Virginia. As a baby, my dad moved our family to Beckley to work as an internal medicine doctor for the United Mine Workers of America. Unbeknownst to me, my passion for math and science would eventually lead me to get back to my roots to unleash baseload power, including fossil fuels, advanced nuclear, geothermal, and hydropower that is so vital to the affordability, reliability, and security of our nation's electricity system. My whole life, I have honed my skills in multi-stakeholder collaboration. Imagine growing up with 7 siblings and trying to get an agreement on anything. Negotiating and persuading such strong and divergent personalities to line up and move forward is never easy. Now imagine doing that in today's political environment. I believe collaboration is one of my most important leadership skills that I can bring to the U.S. Department of Energy and the many stakeholders that make our North American electricity system work. Engineers help make things work. That is why I chose to become an engineer who likes to pick the most difficult things to figure out. I picked the French horn because it is the most difficult instrument to play. I picked chemical engineering because it is the most difficult undergraduate degree to earn. And now, if confirmed, I will tackle one of the most challenging problems our nation has ever faced, helping add the baseload power America needs to meet its energy demands today and in the future. President Trump and Energy Secretary Wright have made their agenda clear. And if confirmed, I will work every day to advance U.S. leadership in innovation, reduce costs for American families, and strengthen grid reliability and security. I have a mindset for innovation. Starting with my first job out of college, I implemented programs that increased production and product quality. For 20 years, I have worked with national laboratories and other premier research institutions to drive innovation from concept to commercialization and foster ingenuity to optimize technology throughout its life cycle. I am a systems thinker who understands the promise and trade-offs of all energy technologies under real-world conditions. If confirmed, I will strive to bring common sense, cost-effective solutions that benefit all Americans. In President Trump's first term, I had the opportunity to work in the Office of Electricity as Deputy Assistant Secretary for Transmission Permitting and Technical Assistance. In that role, I developed and still have extensive relationships and understanding of the complex and often divergent perspectives at the international, regional, state, and local levels. The North American power grid is the biggest machine in the world and has the biggest bureaucracy in the world to make it work. If confirmed, I will work relentlessly to deliver on President Trump's promise to cut red tape and expedite the development of reliable energy infrastructure. I enjoyed meeting with many members of the committee, and I appreciate the perspective, priorities, and insight that you have shared. If confirmed, I will need your continued partnership to strengthen our grid. I look forward to answering your questions, and if confirmed, implementing the President's and Secretary's bold energy agenda to unleash energy security and prosperity. Chairman Lee, Ranking Member Heinrich, thank you for the opportunity to appear before the committee today, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. I had a few friends in college who were chemical engineering majors, and I can vouch for the fact that nobody worked harder. I was science duped, just political science. Apparently it's not the same. We'll hear now, no science, exactly. We'll hear now from Mr. Hausfeld.
Chairman Lee, Ranking Member Heinrich, and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. I'm deeply honored to be considered for the role of Assistant Secretary for Fossil Energy at the U.S. Department of Energy. I want to express my sincere gratitude to President Trump for his nomination and to Energy Secretary Wright for his support. I would also like to take a moment to thank my family and friends here with me today and those watching online. Here with me are my high school sweetheart and wife, Bria, our 4 children, Nevaeh, Harper, Noah's sleeping there, and Hudson is also sitting down next to my 2 parents, Tom and Donna. I've also been joined by several close friends. Thank you all for your support. I was born and raised in North Dakota, just a few miles from the historic Williston Basin Discovery Well. My family's roots run deep in both energy and agriculture. One grandfather managed drilling operations, while the other farmed our family homestead where he and my grandma still live today. Growing up, I developed a profound appreciation for both industries and the critical role energy plays in modern agriculture. From fueling tractors to providing the fertilizers that nourish our crops. I'm proud to say that I'm a 3rd-generation energy worker. My family's connection to energy spans decades, and their hard work instilled in me a deep respect for the industry and its importance to our nation. With a small nudge from my late grandfather, I pursued a degree in petroleum engineering from Montana Tech, followed by an MBA in energy from the University of Oklahoma. This combination of engineering and economic study has been instrumental in shaping my career and preparing me to address the challenges and opportunities in the energy sector. Early in my career, I was fortunate to lead a team that invented and commercialized a diagnostic technique now used globally to optimize hydraulic fracturing and resource development. This experience sparked a growing passion for energy and technology, which led me to lead an Energy Ventures team. In this role, our team had the privilege of investing in early-stage startups rooted in fundamental science, including a leading next-generation geothermal company with operations in Nevada and a 500-megawatt development underway in Utah. Our team also conducted technical evaluations for innovative projects such as direct lithium extraction from brine in Arkansas and California, carbon capture, utilization, and sequestration in Wyoming, and produced water treatment and beneficial use in New Mexico. These experiences have given me a front row seat to the incredible innovation happening in the energy industry across our resource-rich nation. I've been blessed to build my career during one of the most transformative periods in energy history, the shale revolution. A revolution brought about by industry and enabled in part by fundamental research from our tremendous national laboratories. This technological breakthrough moved the U.S. from the world's largest importer of liquefied natural gas to the largest exporter, positioning us as a global leader in oil and natural gas production, transforming us from energy dependent to energy dominant. The energy industry has not only powered our nation, but it has also fueled economic growth, strengthened national security, and improved the quality of life for millions of Americans and our allies around the world. U.S. natural gas has delivered affordable, reliable, and secure energy, while at the same time reducing the emissions from electricity generation by more than 40%. It's been a privilege to contribute to this progress, and I am passionately aligned with President Trump's common sense energy agenda, an agenda that will ensure future generations have access to affordable, reliable, secure, and abundant energy made in America. If confirmed, I will honor the fundamentals of science and economics to serve our country. I'm committed to advancing policies that unleash U.S. energy dominance, foster innovation, and ensure that America remains a global leader in energy production and technology. If confirmed, I will work to leverage the incredible talents within our DOE and national labs to drive forward cutting-edge research and development. Simply put, energy is the backbone of our national security, our economy, and our way of life. Thank you for your time and consideration. I look forward to your questions.
Thanks so much, Mr. Asfalt. Okay, we're going to proceed now to 5-minute rounds of questions. Each senator on the committee here will have a turn. We'll go between Republicans and Democrats, alternating in order of committee seniority as modified by the early bird rule, and I'll begin that now. Mr. Delfelmeyer, why don't we start with you? As a lawyer, you're aware of the fact that NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act, is a procedural statute. It doesn't require a specific foreordained or substantive outcome. It rather requires that agencies take a hard look at environmental impacts. Recognizing that, and given the urgency that we face and the energy space, the Department of Interior recently invoked some procedures to speed up the process. There are a lot of countries that have emulated our NEPA law, and it's worked well for them. A lot of them have been very good at this point in making sure that the process doesn't take longer than necessary. And so the plan, as I understand it, at the Department of Interior would be to complete environmental assessments within 14 days and environmental impact statements within 28 days for energy projects. Now, do you believe these expedited timelines are consistent with NEPA's requirements, and how do you plan to help the department meet those goals?
Thank you, Chairman Lee. As we discussed in your office, and I very much enjoyed my time with you and your staff, I very much agree with President Trump that our country does face an energy crisis. With generative AI and data centers and advanced manufacturing, our demand curve is going up exponentially. And meanwhile, we have a permitting system that takes far too long to actually meet the increase in demand that we're facing. When President Trump first took office on his first day, he signed a number of executive orders relating to energy, and the Unleashing American Energy Executive Order instructs all the agencies to exercise all legal authorities they have to expedite this permitting process. I'm not at the Department of Interior, and I've not been involved with devising the emergency procedures. But as you said, I am familiar with NEPA, and it is a procedural statute, and it does require a hard look. And I'm looking forward to working with the Department of Interior to make sure that we satisfy all the legal requirements during the time period allotted in order to get energy projects moving and not, stuck in endless litigation. So,
Thank you. Mr. Hausfeld, I'll go to you next. The U.S. Trade Representative recently released a notice of potential action in response to an investigation about Chinese maritime shipping dominance. The action laid out in the fourth annex to that document is likely, if implemented, to have a detrimental effect on LNG exports. The action would require, as I understand it, 1% of LNG export vessels to be U.S. flagged and U.S. built by 2029, and then that percentage shifts up gradually over time until it gets to 15% by 2047. But the action would also allow USTR to suspend LNG export licenses until the terms of the action are met. Now, this is, in my mind, raises considerable concerns and bears a striking, stunning resemblance to the so-called Jones Act. Now, the Jones Act, of course, applies with regard to shipments between U.S. ports, one U.S. port to another without an intervening stop in another country. Requires them to be U.S. built, crude, flagged, and so forth. In your opinion, does USTR have the authority and the jurisdiction to suspend Department of Energy LNG export licenses through a rulemaking procedure?
Senator, thank you for the question. This is not an area of expertise, but I can say that LNG has been a force of good for the world. It's been a boon for the U.S. economy. It's delivered affordable, reliable energy to our allies across the globe. So any type of rulemaking that restricts our ability to deliver that incredible fuel to our friends and allies across the globe is a negative for America, a negative for our allies, and we need to do everything we can to avoid putting further restrictions on LNG exports.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And if you're confirmed, will you agree to work with me and my staff to clarify, figure out this jurisdictional ambiguity between whenever you're confirmed and prior to finalization of this proposed possible rulemaking?
Absolutely, Senator.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, my time is up. We're going to turn next to Senator Heinrich, who will be asking questions. I have got to run to the Foreign Relations Committee for a moment to cast a few votes. Senator Hoeven has graciously agreed to take the gavel while I'm out, and I'll be back in a few minutes. Senator Heinrich.
Thanks, Chairman. Mr. Dorfenmeyer, the Office of the Solicitor is responsible for making sure that the department follows the law. However, right now, the department continues to violate court orders with respect to frozen funds. And at some point, the excuse that these funds are, quote, under review begins to not hold water. If confirmed, will you ensure that appropriated funds are obligated and dispersed in a timely manner in accordance with the law and in accordance with the Impoundment Control Act?
Thank you, Senator Heinrich. I have not started working at the Department of Interior yet, so I'm not familiar with what appropriated funds have or have not been spent. But as the solicitor, my job will be to review the facts and review the law and provide my clear advice on what the law requires. And the Impoundment Control Act and other legal requirements, say that Congress controls the purse strings. And I will analyze them and give the advice that if the law requires that the funds be obligated and spent, then the funds will be obligated and spent.
Last month, a senior advisor to the Secretary exercising the power of the solicitor outside of the Vacancies Reform Act reinstated a legal opinion that had been vacated by a federal district court. The district court vacated the prior solicitor's opinion because the solicitor had misinterpreted the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. Notably, the Justice Department did not press an appeal to that court's decision. Yet the senior advisor's opinion purports to reinstate the vacated opinion in 93 of the nation's 94 judicial districts. So I'm curious, do you believe that a solicitor or even an advisor exercising the solicitor's authority can overrule the decision of a federal district judge?
Thank you, Senator Heinrich. The short answer is no. I do not believe that the solicitor can overrule a federal district judge. Opinions, which you're referring to, is something that's unique to the Department of Interior. It's something that I've learned a little about, and I look forward to learning a lot more about, but they're the highest level legal interpretation by the solicitor, and they are binding, those opinions are binding on the Department of Interior. My past, as you heard, in addition to the Easter Bunny and a raft guide and other things, I was a litigator for 12 years. I've since gone on to the private sector, but when I first learned about them opinions and took, turned through a few of them, I thought, wow, this is really going to harken back to my litigation days. They are very long, reasoned opinions. They look a lot like court opinions, and I look forward to exercising some of those skills that I learned in order to analyze the law and the facts and provide opinions that are sound and durable and will stand up in court.
I want to go back for just a minute to something that the chairman asked you about, which is complying with NEPA, with both environmental impact statements and environmental assessments in these 14 and 28-day timelines. And if you can do that and meet all the requirements of the law, I'm all for it. I think what you've seen in this committee has been a bipartisan commitment to permitting reform, to getting to yes or no faster for projects. However, if you get to the end of 28 days and you haven't been able to meet all the legal requirements for an EIS, if at that point you publish an EIS that does not meet those requirements, it creates litigation risk. That's the opposite of shovels in the ground that so talk to me about how you're going to balance that. If you can get to a high-quality legal product that does not create litigation risk for the proponents in 28 days, I'm all for that. But if you haven't checked all those boxes at the end of 28 days, are you going to continue forward and make sure that those products actually will withstand legal challenge?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question, and I do want to first say thank you very much to you and the members of this committee for the work that you've done on permitting reform. The Fiscal Responsibility Act with the time limits for NEPA, as well as the work for the permitting reform bill that didn't quite pass last year, were both very, very welcome news to the industry. When it comes to
we can still pass that law. I would just mention to all my colleagues, I think that would be a good idea.
But the short answer to your question is, well, I don't know if there is a short answer. What I will say is it would do no good and would be counterproductive to publish a final EIS and a record of decision that did not, entail the necessary hard look in what's required by the statute. You can get a permit in 28 days, but if 2 years worth of litigation results in a remand that's going to require 6 months of a new analysis, that's not doing anyone good. That's not getting shovels in the ground. So we are completely aligned on that, Senator Heinrich. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Senator Hoven.
Senator Justice. Thank you, Ranking Member Heinrich. Senator Justice.
Well, before I get started, and I'm going to be really short and sweet, I've got to tell you a little story. And this centers around Senator Hoven. But the story is just this. A long time ago, my dad was sitting at a pool bar in the pool with Lawson Hamilton. And Dad had been working really, really hard on trying to come up with the keys to Emerald City in regard to how a high wall miner worked. And he was trying to basically go into the high wall with a round hole and come back with a square hole. And he looked in the bottom of the pool, and there was this circle with this square around it. And he said, "There it is, Lawson, right there. Right there it is, Lawson." And Mr. Hamilton was telling me this story, and he kept looking back at me and saying, "I didn't know what to say to your dad. I thought possibly your dad had lost his mind because he kept saying, "There it is, Lawson, right there it is." Well, I was struggling with this striking resemblance, between Mr. Housefight and our Senator Hoven. But I got it now. I got it, and I get it and everything. The resemblance is without question there and everything. And, the youth, the passion, the wisdom, absolutely, I've got it. And so it took me a little while to see the circle and the square, but I've got it now. Listen.
Senator, that's why everybody likes you. I'm telling you right now.
But I would tell you just this. I can ask you questions, and they may sound important. We are really blessed, really, really blessed to have 3 nominees like these. I mean, that's all there is to it. And so, I congratulate you in every way. I've looked at the questions and thought about it and everything and thought, I am absolutely just going to waste your time and maybe mine too. I congratulate you, and we have got to have these nominees. That's all there is to it. You will do amazing work, and I know you will. I can feel it in my heart, and I really listen to my heart, maybe more than my mind a lot of times. But I think you'll be fantastic beyond belief. The only other thing I can say is just this. I go back and I just think just a second about my dad and really how hard that he tried, and we started with nothing, and I mean nothing. And how proud he would be of all of y'all. You're young, and go to work and make us proud. That's all I've got. God bless you. I'm deferring the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Justice. Senator Hickenlooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank all of you for all the work you've done and for being willing to put yourselves out and commit yourselves to public service for who knows how long. Let me start with a question for Ms. Haresa. The mission of the Office of Electricity is to lead research and development to strengthen and modernize the nation's power grid, which, Lord knows, needs a lot of help right now. And yet, DOE has lost more than 4,000 staff members this year so far, including over 70% of the people in the Grid Deployment Office. National Laboratories working to advance research in grid modernization. They've begun layoffs. NRail in Colorado recently laid off 114 people. It seems to put our energy goals at risk. I just wanted to ask, as we try to upgrade our grid to prevent blackouts, to meet this rising energy demand, and oftentimes we're going to need energy in places where we didn't need it before, especially as AI really takes off. We're losing the expert staff at DOE and our national labs. How are we going to respond to that when you're going to come into a situation you're probably not going to have, when you say all hands on deck, there's not going to be a crowd?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. I really appreciate, and one of the reasons that I love working at the Department of Energy is the opportunity to work with some of the brightest minds who have such a commitment and dedication to their mission, and they work tirelessly for that. And if confirmed, my mission space will be with the Office of Electricity, and the Grid Deployment Office is currently a separate area. But I would, when I think about the resources, if confirmed, I will make every effort to work with you and assess the situation to ensure that we have the staffing and the resources that we need to ensure that we are able to continue to meet our very, very important mission.
Great. And I noticed that when Chris Wright came in, his first secretarial order was an imperative as we consider current and anticipated load growth on our nation's electric utilities. And I think that's what you're going to be very busy.
No doubt.
Mr. Housefight, I saw you spent, is it your whole professional career with Devon?
Yes, Senator.
It's either a curse or very fortunate. I know Devon.
I think the latter.
Somewhat, yeah, I know. I wouldn't argue there. Colorado's got a proud history. We were the first government entity of any kind to regulate methane, to recognize the negative effects of it, and to recognize that you can, by regulating it, you can actually allow it to be captured and used as a form of energy instead of working against us, against the climate. A number of Colorado companies and universities have continued to try to focus on how do we make that next step in methane and be able to measure it more clearly, and other aspects of methane emissions for the benefit both of industry and climate. If you're confirmed, are you willing to really push and continue that methane reduction research that's been taking place at a variety of places within the Fossil Energy Office?
Senator, thank you for the question. METEC, one of your state's most well-known labs in this area of study, is a lab that we work with at my current employer. As you know, methane is a very difficult gas to measure. We're actively working to develop technologies, including low Earth orbit satellites, drones, continuous monitoring. Our company has a test site in Oklahoma that we invite people to visit freely, where we can test these different methane monitoring systems so we can find the best solution. Not only is it the right thing to do for the environment, it's the right thing to do for our economics. We spend millions of dollars to drill and complete these wells in order to produce the valuable products, oil and natural gas. We want to do our best to capture it and put it to good use to supply the energy that America needs. So I will absolutely commit to continue to work to find ways to take care of our nation's natural resources.
Right, and I think that it's important to continue to recognize that we can have a strong economy and address climate change at the same time. That there's a alignment of self-interest there for all of us. Just about out of time, Ms. Jerez, I did want to, we talked a little bit about the power grid and how we are going to be needing to get energy from places where we don't generate it to places where we now are going to need it. But part of the, we lost some of the research around that, and we were looking at ways before to strengthen and modernize our grid. Past research has shown that increasing the flows of electricity across multiple regions can make our grid more reliable, electricity more affordable. But some of those research findings have been suppressed in various ways. I'm sure you're aware of some of that. Obviously, you're committed to scientific inquiry and the integrity of science. I respect that. Will you make sure that we get the research published in a timely manner, no matter which direction it points us?
Senator, I very much appreciate what you're saying. Starting with my college years, I got very rigorous review, and I've learned from that, and I offer that to others when I look at their reports so that they will resonate and that they will be useful. And so it is important that at the pace that we need to go, that yes, I will, if confirmed, I will work to help to expedite the analysis so that it gets into the hands of those who need it.
Great. I'm out of time, but appreciate all of your time being here, and I'll have other questions I will pepper you with in written form in the future.
Thank you, Senator Hickenlooper. Mr. House Veit, you're very familiar with the Bakken, and so you know that even though before it was commercially viable to produce the Bakken, it was technologically viable. And so the challenge we had, I was governor back at that time, and starting in 2000, is we were drilling the vertical wells, which you're very familiar with, but the economics were such that all the companies were leaving. There were other places where they could go and, frankly, do better. We started to work on the shale play and eventually, of course, cracked the code and went from just being technologically viable to commercially viable. So talk to me in terms of carbon capture, because the same thing applies. Now, you're very familiar with the Energy and Environmental Research Center at the University of North Dakota. My first question is, are you committed to continuing the Peace Corps partnership that they have with the Department of Fossil Energy at DOE?
Senator, thank you for the question. Thank you for the time earlier this week. I'm very familiar with the EERC. It's a team of very talented scientists, geologists. I don't know the details of the agreement that's currently in hand at DOE. If confirmed, I do commit to reviewing that contract, understanding the benefits to the DOE and to the nation.
Okay, but that is part of the work that is going to, and EERC is a great example of the type of entity that you need to work with along with private enterprise to crack the code here. You need to crack the code in terms of getting carbon capture commercially viable. How are you going to do it?
Senator, thank you for the question. Working with the brightest minds in the country is one way. We need to drive the costs down, just like we did with the shale revolution. In order to make anything compete for capital, it needs to generate a return that attracts investment. We need to find ways not only to capture CO2, we need to use the CO2. Most of our unconventional revolution resources are maturing, and we're leaving 90% of the oil in the ground. We have 90% of the oil that we need to go get, and CO2 is an incredible resource to do that. It's got the right physical properties, that it will be easy to inject, it will mix with the oil at lower pressures, and will allow us to go recover the remaining resource below our feet, below wells that have already been drilled and locations that have already been built with infrastructure already in place. So we need to be thinking about how to use this resource to go recover more affordable, reliable energy. And
Right. It's a huge twofer, right? You not only pull the CO2 off the coal plants, so now you've got longevity with base load, but now you also have that CO2 for carbon floods, which doubles the life of these oil fields, right? That's energy and more energy, right? And better environmental stewardship.
Senator, we need to get more oil out of the ground, and CO2 is a fantastic resource to do that.
And we have this time now to do it with an administration that understands how to produce all of our energy resources. So we need to get this done for future, so we have this resource for future generations. Would you agree?
We need this resource for many generations. Hydrocarbons make up more than 80% of our primary energy, and we need more of it for many, many decades.
Thank you. And so then I'm going to turn to Ms. Teresa. Going down the same line, we need more electricity. All these smart guys want it for AI and all these different uses, right? They always want more and more and more electricity. Yet at the same time, we face all these pressures that actually constrain our ability to produce that base load electricity. And so coal-fired electricity is incredibly important for the stability of the grid and having that base load. How are you going to work with your colleague next to you there and make sure that we have these coal plants around for a long, long time, future generations, so that they can provide you that base load you need for an electric, reliable grid?
Thank you, Senator, for that.
Counting on you two to get this done now, so.
Well, it is a daunting task, but we work for President Trump, and I think that he would only trust folks who are movers and shakers and want to get things done. And so I will, if confirmed, it also will involve not just the two of us working together, but working with our federal families, and also the grid in itself has many, many stakeholders working with the states and the local people to get it done. And so the collaboration that I talked about before, we will have early conversations and ongoing engagement to ensure that what we are doing is in the best interest of our taxpayers and can benefit all Americans with affordable, secure, reliable energy.
You agree we need that base load?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, that is, we're in a situation today, thank you for reminding me about that. Baseload is so important for stabilizing our grid. It allows more buffer in the system to accommodate the different shapes that are happening. You were talking about the AI and data centers. We know that they're not only going to have huge demand, but they're also going to have interesting shapes that the grid is going to have to respond to. And baseload will certainly help to support that.
So, Mr. Doffermeyer, and then you've got the key role to play in that, delays defeat. You start out talking about your job in terms of guiding white water rafting and hunting and fishing. I mean, I about cried. It sounded so good. I mean, I love to hunt, love to fish, love the outdoors. And, I could just see the serene look on your face while you're talking about it. That's really awesome stuff. So we love the environment, and we want to always protect it and all that. But at the same time, we got to develop this energy, and so we've got to have a certain permitting process that works, that's certain, that we get the investment made. We do it right and well, but we get her done, right?
Amen.
Talk about that. How are you going to work with these two next year to make sure we have energy from these sources, that we can't get to energy dominance without the things we're talking about? How do you see us moving forward to get that done?
Yep. Well, thank you so much, Senator Hoeven, for the question, and thank you for all that the work that you have done, or that I witnessed, I was not involved with the Dakota Access Pipeline, but I was familiar with it, and I know that you were very helpful, and that's a perfect example of
The whole country was familiar with it.
yeah, it's a perfect example of a broken regulatory system.
Exactly.
You know, it's one president says you got the permit.
It's been operating for almost, I don't know, well over 5 years now. 500,000 plus barrels a day, and it still doesn't have the final regulatory approval.
Right.
Think about that.
Yeah, and it's granted, the right of way, and then it's revoked, and then it's granted again, and it's revoked, and it's just, if we continue along that line, if we continue to have a permitting system, that operates like that, the capital will dry up, the investment in these types of infrastructure projects will not be there, and we will not be able to meet the growing demand, and ultimately, heaven forbid, we'll lose the AI arms race to China. So, I think permitting is absolutely critical to our energy security, and I think we all agree that our energy security is critical to our national security.
Thank you to all three of you. Appreciate it. Senator Cortez Masto.
Thank you. Congratulations, and welcome to all of your family members who are here as well. I appreciate your willingness to serve. Let me start with Mr. Doffenmeyer. I don't really have questions for you, but I'll do it on the record. But I have to say, I appreciate your candor and your respect for the law and the rule of law and what it means. That's very rare in this day with individuals coming before us. So I thank you. I thank you for your comments on that. Let me start with Ms. Herreza as well as Mr. Hausdevate. The bipartisan infrastructure law is helping Nevada become a national leader for battery manufacturing and recycling. We also hold the capacity to support the entire supply chain in my home state. For example, Nevada has enough lithium to supply the world for 85 years. I know you're aware of that. However, it is unfortunate that President Trump's fiscal year 2026 budget calls for the cancellation of over $15 billion from the bipartisan infrastructure law. And he specifically, in that fiscal year budget, targets battery manufacturers and calls these funds handouts. Now, as lithium-ion batteries and related technologies continue to be used by our military and clean energy applications, I believe we should be making them here to cut our reliance on communist China and not dismantle enacted DOE programs that strengthen our global competitive, quite honestly. So if confirmed, let me ask you what your positions would be on the dismantling of those programs that support the research into and the support for battery manufacturing. And Ms. Herreza, let me start with you.
Sure. Thank you for the question, Senator. It is in this race very important that we continue to have the innovation that is so necessary to deploy the new technologies that we need. And just for clarification, the Office of Electricity has energy storage research in its budget, and it is not IIJ related. And so I expect that, if confirmed, that research will continue. And what's really interesting, even though I haven't been directly involved in that research, there's a cluster effort at the Pacific Northwest National Lab where it looks at working with the Office of Science and basically going from atoms to systems to make sure that concept of commercialization is happening. And so I'm excited to see when we're competing with China that we come up with non-lithium solutions, and America is poised to be able to take advantage of that. And if confirmed, I look forward to working with you and with the others around me to ensure that we do that.
Thank you. Mr. Hausdevate?
Senator, thank you for the question. Your state of Nevada is blessed with great resource, both hard rock, clay, and brine, and it's been incredible to watch the rapid technological development of new techniques, including direct lithium extraction. I'm not yet in the office, so I don't know exactly what's being dismantled, what's being proposed, but I'm fully aligned that we need to take out of the hands of communist China 90+% of the manufacturing of battery technology and onshore, bring manufacturing back to the U.S. We have the resource, we have the talent.
I agree, and let me just say, and I appreciate some of your written testimony earlier, and even your comments about the importance of lithium extraction and mining and in its role in the future of technology, and that this country should be leading, believing in public-private partnership. Why would we be doing that extraction if we're not bringing the manufacturing back here that utilizes that technology, particularly around battery and battery storage as well? So I appreciate those comments. Let me jump back to something that's come to my attention, and Ms. Teresa, if you would, if you can comment on this. In 2022, Congress appropriated $1 billion to the Department of Energy for resilient energy infrastructure in Puerto Rico. And this past December, the department announced $365 million in awards for energy supply projects at community healthcare centers. In March, the department wrote a letter specifying requirements to advance these projects, but their future now appears to be at risk. So my question to you is, can I count on you to implement these projects that will provide life-sustaining electricity to medically vulnerable Puerto Rican Americans?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. The Puerto Rico efforts are led by the Grid Deployment Office, and so I think that they're the ones who are leading the efforts and the review efforts as well. And if confirmed, what I will do is I will assess those projects and look at how does this impact not just those that are in need, but also the entire grid. Secretary Wright and President Trump have made it clear that we need to look at what we can do to improve the security resilience of the grid.
Let me just ask you this, because this was appropriated by Congress. This goes back to the rule of law. This was appropriated Congress for a specific reason. So how does the administration have the authority now to redirect those funds when that really wasn't within their jurisdiction? That is my concern. And I'm hoping that you are going to be, when you get in this position, following the rule of law and respecting the role of Congress and our appropriation authority and where we redirect these funds.
Senator, I very much appreciate the rule of law, and if confirmed, I will comply with the law, and we will work. I look forward to looking into this to assess the situation.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator King.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Doffenmeyer, I was fascinated by your exchanges with Senator Hoeven at the end of his questioning about the restricting and changing permits in midstream. How do you feel about the fact that 2 weeks ago the Department of Interior canceled the permits for Empire Wind, which took 7 years, cost $2.5 billion. They had fully completed permits, including a lease from the Bureau of Energy Management from 2017. How do you feel about that?
Thank you, Senator King.
Is it okay to pull that permit but not a permit for a pipeline?
No, and I will address your question directly. I did want to just say, because you weren't here at the introduction, my wife and I, our first year of marriage, lived in Maine, and I believe you were the governor at the time, and we absolutely loved it.
Referred to as the golden age.
It was the golden age. It was a honeymoon, a year-long honeymoon. It couldn't have been any better. I am not familiar with the wind project permit or licensing issue that you're describing. I will say, from my standpoint, especially in the private sector, I think the reliance interest of business, the predictability of these permits is something that's very important. I don't know what would have caused this administration to review a permit the way that you described.
It was completed, issued, final record of decision, everything was done. They were ready to, I think they were actually beginning construction.
Okay.
In construction, that was stopped. But so I wish you'd look into that. I as a person who's been in the development business, this is the worst nightmare.
Yes.
To go through the process, spend, in my case, millions of dollars, in this case, several $1 billion on permitting, and have a permit pulled after it's issued. That's not a good signal to industry, as I think you will agree.
Yes, I do agree. You know, as the solicitor, I won't be as much of a policymaker as I will be an advisor, but to the extent that I'm, where the lines blur, you're going to have a strong voice in the room in favor of reliability and predictability and durability of these permits, and that, the private sector needs to be able to rely on this in order to attract the capital to build the infrastructure that we need.
Completely agree, and I hope that strong voice will be heard. 14 days, 28 days for an environmental impact statement, that's impossible. That is the Lawyers and Accountants Relief Act of 2025, because that decision will inevitably, as you point out yourself, be appealed, go into litigation, which will take a year or two, come back to the agency. I'm completely committed. I joined the chair and Senator Barrasso, Senator Manchin on permitting reform and time limits, absolutely, but setting time limits that are so unrealistic as to guarantee litigation, it seems to me, is not a productive use of the rulemaking power. You've been in this business. 28 days for an environmental impact statement, that's not serious.
Yeah, well, I share Senator Heinrich's view that, if we're able to comply with the statute within 28 days, then, I will applaud the entire.
And if I can walk across the Potomac River, that'll be good too.
Well, it doesn't seem.
Although the press would say king unable to swim if I
Right.
did that.
Right. I'm not sure I would agree that it's impossible. It doesn't defy the laws of physics. My view is that it's a very ambitious timeline. I have not been involved in developing that timeline, but I'm very much committed to expediting these permitting timelines as much as we possibly can.
We're all committed to that. I just don't want unrealistic goals that end up lengthening the timeline. Ms. Jazera, are you aware what the cheapest electricity produced in America today is?
For the cheapest?
Cheapest source of electricity in America today.
So when it comes to the cost.
The fact that I'm asking you the question should give you a hint.
Would it be Maine?
It's solar and wind. Cheapest form of electricity today. And would you also agree that renewables plus storage equals baseload?
Senator, thank you for asking about the cost of electricity. It's a complicated question, and there are many
No, it
drivers.
isn't complicated. It's how much what the bus bar cost is of various forms of electricity. There are reports. I get a report every week on what the cost of electricity is from various sources. Wind and solar are consistently the lowest.
So at the Office of Electricity, we look at systems, and so as an engineer, that's what we look at. We look at integrated systems planning, not just resource planning. And so every resource has a certain value that they can provide to the grid, and sometimes there are systems costs, and there's different values that, like compared from firm baseload compared to solar and wind, that you need to make some accommodation for the intermittency that you have.
And I agree with that. I totally agree with that. And right now, battery storage is more expensive and therefore makes the net cost higher. I understand that. On the other hand, I think the important thing is there have been gigantic steps in battery technology over just in the last 5 years. And the point is, wind and solar are intermittent, but when you have storage, whether it's battery or pump storage or whatever else, that's the same as base load because the intermittency problem goes away, correct?
Senator, when we think about the cost of electricity, it's going to depend on the geography, like where you're located, and how does that resource behave there, and it's also going to depend on the load and how that behaves with that. And so it's really going to depend on where you are in the system. And what we're finding is...
Of course, windy places have more wind power and it's a higher capacity factor. I get that. But still, I'll share the data with you. It's pretty clear. Natural gas combined cycle is a little bit higher. Wind and solar are the cheapest. Nuclear is more expensive. I mean, coal is very expensive. And I understand you got to talk about storage too. But the point I want to make is all of the above means all of the above. And it worries me that we're talking strictly about fossil fuel development and not the technologies that will enable us to have a cleaner energy future. Storage is part of it. Solar and wind the price has already dropped so dramatically. One other point, and I'm way over time, is about grid-enhancing technologies when you're talking about transmission. I hope that's something you look seriously at so that we're not just overbuilding, and we should take advantage of technologies like reconductoring and the so-called GETs. Do you agree that that's something that should be seriously looked at as we're talking about transmission enhancements?
Senator, the GETs are very important because if we're going to get much more energy out of the system, we need to not just have energy addition, but we can also get more out of the system. And
Which
so
will
GETs
save us
offer
huge
that.
costs in transmission development. And that, I think, is something that should be looked at first before we talk about new rights-of-way poles, et cetera.
Senator, I think that we have to look at everything, all the options that are available, because the demand is increasing by so much that we're going to have to look at every option that's on the table. And what is commercially ready? What is most viable over the long term? And so, if confirmed, the Office of Electricity will be looking at, I'll be working to end that research area for advancing conductors, power electronics, microgrids, and various areas to advance the state of the technology.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the indulgence.
Senator Murkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I apologize that I've missed most of your testimony. My commitment to you is I'm going back to read it all. Some very quick questions today as we're running between different committees. First, to Mr. Hosfeld. Carbon capture. We've got some key projects that we're anticipating as we're looking to process North Slope natural gas. This is central to the viability of our Alaska LNG project. DOE has already been awarded funding for 2 CCS initiatives. One is ASRC's Carbon Safe Hub, and then a direct air capture feasibility study. Both of these are in limbo right now. We're concerned that they may be on a DOE list of cuts going to the White House. It's something, again, that we have been working with industry in a very collaborative way, working with the agencies. And we look at this piece as really very strategic for the energy initiative that we have up there. I know you're not in yet, but I'm just asking for your commitment to look critically at this, have the ability to defend these Alaska-based projects given their strategic energy importance.
Senator, thank you for the question. As you stated, I'm not in, so I don't know the details, but I do commit to looking at projects that are part of the department. Carbon capture, especially for use for extracting additional hydrocarbons, is something that I'm passionate about. Prudhoe Bay benefited greatly because you didn't have a place to put the gas for a long time and you re-injected it, resulting in higher recovery. My home state of the Bakken is recovering somewhere between 10 and 15% of the oil in place, and CO2 is a potential solution to inject into the reservoir to recover more oil. We've got tremendous resource in our country. Alaska's blessed greatly with resources across the entire state, and CO2, if available at affordable levels, can be a great injectant, can be a great solution to recover more of that resource.
We look forward to sharing more of the details about these projects and the opportunity to show you firsthand.
Thank you, Senator.
Let me turn to you, Ms. Jereza. As you know, map shows we're not connected by geography to the lower 48, and our grid is not part of a continental grid. And so we have some unique reliability and affordability challenges. Our grid is what we call the rail belt. So it goes up as far as the railroad, and then kind of comes back down the other way. But we have aging infrastructure, aging transmission infrastructure that we're dealing with. We've got limited redundancy. We've got high cost to our ratepayers. So I need you, and again, same point that I've just made previously. I understand you're not there, but we have a grid modernization effort that is underway, significant grant funding that came a couple years ago to help us with this integration of this transmission grid to kind of boost it up, to allow it to take us at least forward for the next decade or so. So I just need your commitment to look critically at what our needs are in Alaska, again, when we're not part of anybody else's interrelated grid.
Senator, it would be my pleasure to do that. I actually was fortunate enough to go to Cordova and see the great innovations that are happening at
Super
Cordova
cool stuff.
Electric. So I can't wait to go back.
Yeah, good. Well,
If confirmed.
You will have that invitation. And finally, Mr. Doffermeyer, I know you've got a little bit of a connection to Alaska through your, through some of your law school buddies who are very focused on Alaska. Caleb Freilich, who is around here. He speaks highly of you, by the way. We saw in the last administration just a torrent of decisions and regulations from Interior that were absolutely contrary to what we passed into law here in Congress. It was pretty tough, and this was on our petroleum reserve. It was on the non-wilderness portion of the coastal plain. It was on the Ambler Access Project. Our public land orders, we've got a whole list of them. I just need your commitment, and I hope that this is the easiest question that you will ever get, your commitment to ensure that Interior returns to following the law as it is written if you are confirmed as solicitor.
Yes, ma'am. Wow.
See how easy that was.
Easy enough.
I appreciate that because we feel like we're pretty clear here in our policies, and then when it is not, when that's not followed through on the other end, great frustration. So look forward to seeing you keep that commitment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate the opportunity to blast in at the very end. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank our witnesses for their testimony today and all the senators for their cooperation. I want to thank Senator Hoeven and his team for filling in when I had to step down to another committee. Questions for the record for the hearing will be due by 6 p.m. this evening. The record of the hearing will remain open for statements until 6 p.m. on Thursday, May 15th, 1 week from today. Thanks again to the members of the committee. On behalf of the committee, I'm pleased to extend congratulations to all three of these nominees and look forward to working with each one as we progress to the floor and should you be confirmed thereafter. I also look forward to working with all the senators on the committee as we continue to consider each of the president's nominees within the jurisdiction of this committee in a timely manner. And I hope everybody on the committee will keep working with me to help persuade leadership on both sides of the aisle to bring these nominees to the floor and have them considered on the floor as soon as possible. The hearing is adjourned. Thank you.